Hello, everyone from the public and panelists. I'm just getting a few things configured, and we will get started in just a moment.
Welcome to the January program sponsored by the League of Women Voters, Grand Traverse Area, and hosted by Traverse Area Community Media. Our topic today is a day in the life of a legislator. Today is also a federal holiday honoring the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a man who left a lasting legacy on our country. I am League member Jean Howard, moderator for today's program. The League of Women Voters is a national, nonpartisan organization. The League does not endorse or oppose candidates or political parties, but does work to obtain and distribute information to the public about candidates and their views. The League promotes the informed and active participations of all citizens in government. It works to increase the understanding of major public policy issues through education and advocacy. Membership in the League is open to men and women of all ages, and we have a special discount for students. If you are watching this live on Facebook or Zoom, you can submit questions for our legislators during the presentation in the comment section of Facebook or the Q&A on Zoom. We are fortunate to have Democratic Representative Betsy Coffia and Republican Representative John Roth with us today to share their experiences in the Michigan Legislature. Representative Coffia is serving her first term representing the 103rd House District, which is comprised of Leelanau County and parts of Grand Traverse and Betsy counties. She holds a bachelor's degree in social work and previously served 2 terms on the Grand Traverse County Commission. Representative Republican John Roth represents the 104th House District, which is comprised of parts of Antrim, Betsy, Grand Traverse, Manistee, Kalkaska, and Wexford counties. He is a former chair of the Grand Traverse Republican Party and served 6 years on the County Parks and Recreation Commission. He holds a degree in marina management from Northwest Michigan College. We're going to have a conversation today with these 2 legislators about what it's like to be a legislator. Our questions are not timed. You won't have time limits, but I do ask that you give each other time to answer each question because we have a whole list of questions for you today that we think everybody will be very interested in. So John, you're the senior official here. I'm going to let you answer the first question, if you will. You're elected. It's your first day on the job. What was your biggest surprise, or how was it different than you thought it would be?
That's a great question. Just to be honest, my first day in the House of Representatives was January 6th, 2021. That gives anybody an idea what my first day was.
Oh,
Obviously, there were some press accounts and things that I was asked to answer then. But I would say I want to take that deeper. That the first couple months in particular of my first year, the difference between county level activity and state level activity. I really give a lot of kudos to anybody that served at a county or township level because so much of the work has to be done in the public, out in the open. You bring up ideas and you've got a chance that you're going to get shot down or you're going to be praised for whatever you bring up. I remember being on the Parks and Rec board for 6 years, and 4 of them I served as the president of the Grand Traverse County Parks and Rec. And a lot of times you threw something out not knowing exactly how that was going to be received. It's different at the state level. There's so many more committee meetings or stakeholder engagements before things are even brought up. So it's at the county level, you're kind of at the whim of the folks, and state level, you're a little more measured in how you attack things.
thank you. Betsy, your opinions on that first day of the job?
Sure. Thank you for having both of us, and happy Martin Luther King Day. And also, Representative Roth, we did not coordinate, but we're both wearing our official jackets. I got a little bit of a kick out of that. Thank you. So let me think. My first day in the legislature was not nearly of the dramatic and severity of what Rep Roth. I didn't realize, John, that you were there on January 6th, but can only imagine. So for me, I think maybe not the first day because that was such a blur, but something that stood out to me pretty early on that from the outside looking at, I guess I assumed would happen a little more, let's say easily, is the Senate chamber is literally right across the Capitol dome from the House chamber. And yet it can feel so far away because our schedules, there isn't as much natural interaction. I don't know, John, if you would agree, but you really have to go out of your way to find time to talk to your senators because they're on a different committee schedule. They have a lot of committees and a lot fewer members, so they're spread thin that way. And their session times are different. And so even though you're literally right across the chamber, you really have to make a point to engage with your senators. And Senator DeMoose and Senator Bumstead are the senators, Republican senators who represent my House district. The overlap, and DeMoose in particular, we're at a lot of events together, and we've made a point, to engage in conversation. We worked together on some budget items last year. We, text and call each other occasionally about different policy issues, but we have to really go out of our way to make those conversations happen because there's just not as much natural interplay between the two chambers as I think as a citizen I would like to see, and as I assumed coming in. So that was an interesting lesson early.
Thank you. Betsy, you mentioned committees. So I'm going to ask you both now, what committees do you serve on?
So I'm on 5, and Rep Roth and I are literal neighbors. Not only do we both represent 2 halves of Grand Traverse County, and he's got most of Betsy, and I have a little corner of Betsy, but on the 13th floor in the House office building, his office is right next door to mine, and we're on a couple of committees together. I'm on 5 policy committees. I'm a member of the Agriculture, Higher Education, Health Policy, Economic Development and Small Business Committees, and I have the honor of being the Majority Vice Chair of Families, Children, and Seniors Committee. So those are my committee assignments.
We can get back to Betsy maybe later. It sounds like her internet is.
I think that was your internet that cut out, Jean. I think I could hear Betsy clearly.
I can certainly share, guys, what my committees are: health policy, transportation, econ and small business, and agriculture. I have 4, and I feel pretty good about that. It's a good schedule. Be very busy. I believe Representative Coffia and I are in 3 of those 4. So
yes, we are.
So yeah, the biggest thing with that is how do we represent Northern Michigan in that capacity? So I would say the committee work is important, and it is important to be on committees. So I'm happy to do so.
My internet is having problems here.
Yeah, Jean, do you want me to ask questions for a little while you work on that? Or you're back, go ahead. Jean, can you hear?
I'm back. I don't know. Yeah, I am. I can hear now. Well, I apologize. My internet is creating some problems, obviously.
So Jean, do you want me to ask a few questions?
Yes, please.
Okay, so this is Alice Schumann, also with the League of Women Voters, just backing up for internet issues. So the next thing we were wondering about is Representative Coffia and now there's Representative Roth. What is the size of your staff? And what do they do? And how do they become a member of your staff? We're interested in knowing about the people who help you every day.
Sure. Thank you for the question. And so my staff, I have 2 full-time staff members who work in my Lansing office. And that is determined by the allotment that we receive from the House Business Office. And those are some decisions that the speaker makes in terms of budget allocation, but we are allotted enough to have 2 full-time staff. And I made a priority to use some of the money that I had left to have an in-district liaison who is here on the ground, able to attend meetings on my behalf when, I'm in Lansing and committee in session and can't be here, and kind of help me keep a finger on the pulse of what's happening, since Lansing is 3 hours away in good weather, a little further, right, John, if it's snowy like it's been lately. But my in-district liaison, like I said, supports my in-district needs, such as staffing me at local events. And then one of my Lansing staffers is my legislative director, and she is directly responsible for helping me prepare for committee, look at policy, work on workshopping the bills that we're building out together. And the other is my constituent services director, and she is my point person. She's sort of air traffic control for schedule, and also is the point person taking calls and helping me keep in touch with constituents' emails. Both of my Lansing staff members, their names are Ashley and Kate. They have both had jobs in the House previously. I thought it was important because I was coming in my first term and new to the process at the state level, even though I've been a county commissioner locally, that I have some folks who kind of had worked in the systems in Lansing and understood kind of some of the pieces that I would need to learn. So they've taught me a lot. But they're very knowledgeable about their roles and our operations when we're in session. They both started as legislative interns and worked their way up to being full-time staffers. And then my in-district person is Renee McCauley. She's a former director of United Way, deeply knowledgeable in the community, is semi-retired, and I'm so lucky to have persuaded her to join our team to help me really, she's been especially focused on mental health, housing, and childcare issues in the district, and helping me kind of stay in conversation with local leaders and affected folks on those fronts. So that's sort of how the staff is set up at the moment.
Okay, Representative Roth.
Thank you. My legislative director, Mindy, is from Oakland County, but she considers herself a Northern Michigan person now. She's probably here more than she is back home. She worked for a small business association. She worked for Guy Vanderjack. That's where she started when he was a representative of ours way back when I first moved to Traverse City area. So she's my legislative director, and I have 2 paid staff. Occasionally, we do get an intern that we can hire on as a part-time person. The legislative director is, of course, all about policy and how do we attack it. If something comes in from a constituent, she's the one who does the research, and we talk about it and see if we can figure out a way to handle that, if it's a policy change or if it's just something we have to contact a department about. I've always made sure my friend is a Northern Michigan person. I've been very lucky. I started out with a young man who was from Williamsburg, right in our area here. And unfortunately, he was so good, he moved on to a legislative director for another rep in the Northern Michigan area. Then I had Alex, who is also from Sutton's Bay, and he moved on from me. We're training these people, and they do move on if they're good. And then we have my newest guy is Josh. He just graduated from Ferris State. He's from the Petoskey area, so he's still a Northern Michigan guy. He's getting me up to snuff. My point person up front is always the guy that's got my schedule, and he owns my life. He makes sure I'm going to everything I'm supposed to be going to, and he does a pretty good job on it. He's getting up and running now. The intern is really there to help me make sure. She scours the newspapers of our area to make sure that there's events I'm seeing or she's seeing that we should be part of, or is it a birthday, or is it a 100-year birthday? Is there somebody did something special in the area that we're contacting with? She's all over it right now, and I've been lucky. It's a second term or partial term that she's been with me, so it's been worked out really good. She's a Michigan State grad or student studying law, so it's good to have her opinion in there also. So how you get you could strictly apply right to the office if you want to be a member of the office. A lot of times we go out and look for people, maybe at Michigan State or one of our local colleges that might want to be an intern first and move into another position. You can apply to the House of Representatives business office, say that you're interested. What is your background? Send a resume right there. There are a lot of positions available, and I recommend highly if we have a student from Northern Michigan, our area, that wants to be part of the legislature, don't be scared to reach out and find out if there's a position available, because we want them there. If it's somebody, Michigan State gets a little preference, and I'm a U of M guy, but Michigan State gets a preference a lot of times because they're so close to us. Obviously, just being in East Lansing, we do get a lot of students out of there that are interns or become staff later. I've had 4 interns that moved on to a position in Lansing doing something else. So we consider our office a little bit of an education office also to help them go to where they might want to go. Some have gone to fundraising, some have gone to policy, some have gone to legislators' offices. So it's an interesting job, and I highly recommend it for folks.
Okay, Jean, it looks like you're back.
Alice, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Is my internet working back?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Next question. How much time do you actually spend on the floor of the House voting for bills versus time spent in your office or doing research?
Happy to start that one. I try to put a percentage on it. It's very hard when you consider.
Hey,
I'm
John.
in Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, I will start on that. It's hard to percentage on that, how much we're on the House floor, because 3.5 days I'm in Lansing, 3.5 days I'm back home in the district. So, and when we're in Lansing, obviously we're not on the House floor the entire time. We are in our offices doing meetings with all kinds of constituents, stakeholders, you name it. I just try to put a percentage, maybe 25% of our time we're on the House floor. That's my best guess, but I think we do far more work in committees and far more work in district, helping out our folks. And, passing a bill is great. That's all nice. It's gravy, but it's helping a constituent with a UIA problem or a treasury problem. That's where really I think we find a lot of our work is helping out constituents back home.
Thank you, Betsy.
Yeah, so I would
How
agree
much
with.
time do you actually spend on the floor of the House voting for bills? Same, or time spent doing research or in your office?
Sure. I mean, I would agree with John that it's hard to put a percentage on it. I really do think sometimes it depends on the week and the intensity of the, let's just say, both the bills on the agenda and also the politics and the drama that might also be happening at times, right, John, between our leadership, for example. But I would say, I mean, the way I've tried to structure it, again, being very mindful that our district is 3 hours away, and it's so important to stay connected to our district. So I always have a full schedule of in-district work. We do, you know, we've done 3 coffee hours a month. I do a lot of in-district meetings on Monday before I get on the road, usually late Monday evening to drive down for committees. And I have committees Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, as John, right? We're both on some of the same committees. And then depending on how late session goes, I might drive back either Thursday night or first thing Friday. And then again, full day of meetings on Friday in district and weekend events. So yeah, maybe it's like a 25-75, roughly 25% ish on the floor where you're doing the final, you know, you're pressing the button, you're voting yes or no on bills. But as John said, so much of our work is in committee. It's meetings with stakeholders. It's responding to constituent emails and calls. And it's really, I mean, this summer we did a lot of in-district work. We knocked probably 6,000 doors doing a survey of community, what are the priorities for the community, and you know, phone banking twice a week. Again, this is legislative side, not campaigning. We're not asking for anybody's vote. It's just simply saying, what's on your mind as voters? And we've heard, you know, childcare, broadband's relevant today as we keep having issues with the internet being difficult, but you know, broadband, childcare, mental health access, right? Housing, and just trying to keep a finger on the pulse of what the folks in the district have to say, because sometimes the lobby corps has it right. And a lot of times I think they maybe don't understand Northern Michigan as well as they want to tell me they do. And so it's important to me to stay connected to what the actual constituents in the district have to say. But yeah, my team has been incredibly helpful. I could not do this work without them, the research and the policy work they do. And we do have, I know both of our caucuses have policy staff whose job it is to help us really dig into, you know, the pros and cons of different bills that move. So there's a huge team effort. We just happen to be the face and the finger pushing the button there on the floor.
Okay, are there some bills currently being considered in the House that you are both supporting because they would be beneficial to Northern Michigan citizens? And House Bill 4313 is one example or something I've read about.
I'll let John speak to that one first because, you know, he's the returning member and that was his bill package that he was gracious enough to invite me to be a part of. So John, why don't you talk about your bill package?
I'd be glad to. This bill started, these 2 bills started way before I got in. This was actually a representative before me that started on it, did not come to completion. Multiple different reasons. I'm not going to go into all those. But it was in my district the first term, and it is not making these summer resorts into nonprofits. They're already kind of nonprofits, not officially by name. So they do not operate on a profit basis, but that's so outdated as a 1897 bill they're formed under, Traverse City Golf and Country Clubs, one, to name one, that they're so antiquated in their structure. We're trying to get them into a situation where they can be a modern nonprofit and set their rules, their bylaws, things that are much more common today. And the only reason they can't is that the bill they were formed under says they can't. They have to stay in this 1897 bill, that's some of the stuff that drives me nuts in government. Let's get rid of some of the old dumb bills that are still there and modernize them as much as it can. And now both of those facilities that asked me to work on this are in Representative Coffia's district. And so it made only sense that I bring her in on it. She gets the modern part, I get the old part. So she gets to bring them into the modern nonprofit, and I get to get them out of the old 1897 thing that they're formed under. And it's not just them. There's about 40 resorts throughout the state of Michigan, and by far the majority want out. So that's just one to talk about that just makes sense to clean up this stuff, get some of these old bills off the books and modernize our state. So, and Representative Coffia has been willing to do that. We've had a hearing through committee. Now we got to get the House floor for a vote.
Thanks, Rep. Roth. I can talk about one, and again, really appreciate him both continuing the work even after his old district was carved up and he lost. It was Neotawanta, right, John? That was
Yeah.
one of the local, very known, obviously the Traverse City Country Club too, but everybody knows Sally at Neotawanta, that was being detrimentally impacted by these very outdated rules around summer resorts being nonprofits. So hopeful, and look, we're tied at 54-54. This seems like a great bipartisan thing. So I've certainly said that to my leadership, and I know we both love to see this move along. One that already moved that I was really excited about came through the Rep. Roth and I are both on economic development and small business, and we got to vote this one out of committee and did vote it into law already, is expanding brownfield redevelopment to allow housing. Now that one sounds very nerdy and down in the weeds, but I was really excited about this one because in my 2 terms on the Grand Traverse County Commission, we had a brownfield redevelopment board, and it allows them to take funds and use them to rehabilitate properties that have been blighted or obsolete for various reasons. But in an area where housing is one of our biggest needs, state law would not allow brownfield funds to be utilized to build housing. And it just kind of drove me nuts because I thought, here we are, this fund, we're underutilizing it because it isn't as flexible as we need it to be to meet a real need that we are hearing about in our region. And so I was thrilled when the brownfield redevelopment bills came through, expanding it to allow housing. We voted for it. John, you voted for it. Yeah, we both voted for it. It was one of, we've had over 150 bills pass in a bipartisan way through our chamber, which I'm proud of, and it's the way it should be. And it's already being put into use. Now, it's not the silver bullet. It's not the magic wand. Housing crisis is not immediately fixed, but I'm a big believer that to the extent that we in the state house can be a partner to local communities as they are tackling and grappling with this challenge, we should. And this is a great example of doing that. When the Housing North did a housing summit in October, and I was able to attend one of the 2 days of I was in session the other day, but I got back in time for the Friday session, and they had a panel with local county commissioners and housing advocates, and they were talking about the bill that we had just passed into law and how they were dusting off their brownfield board that they hadn't used in a long time and already had a set of units for 90 folks. Now, we need a lot more than that, but that's 90 people who are now not going to be struggling looking for housing that they can afford. So it's exciting to me. We're there to serve and try to meet the needs, and there's lots more we can do, but I'm a policy nerd, and that one makes my little Leslie Knope heart very happy.
Definitely, I'll share with Betsy what she just said, that Bel Air, one of my rural areas, is taking advantage of that. So that is something that not just urban, it's rural. A lot of different areas can take advantage of that brownfield situation. And the policy was good. The policy said, as long as there's not severe contamination that would affect the housing, it can work. And so that was a bipartisan bill that certainly made it through. And I know the list, you gave me one with the oral chemo, but it was very personal to me. I've had, unfortunately, a lot of women in my family that have been affected by cancer, and my mother being one of those. And anything we can make the lives of our ladies in our state, well, any lady or man with the oral chemo made sense. At first, a lot of people gave us a hard time about that, but they've now said, it's not that bad. Well, those that were against it are okay now. So it is interesting sometimes how that works.
Yeah, the oral chemo one, I'm glad, Rep. Roth, that you brought that one up. That one was really meaningful to me as well. We all know people, right? We all know people in our lives who have suffered from cancer of various kinds. And so this one, for me, I became aware of the problem with lack of requiring insurance companies to cover orally administered anti-cancer chemotherapy. I became aware of that in 2022. And I still remember, you have those moments on the doors that they leave such an impression. There was a woman who is a healthcare provider who works out, in the oncology department here. I believe she works at Munson. And she took a lot of time, came out on her doorstep and talked to me about how she was seeing that Michigan was one of the few places that didn't require insurance companies to offer parity and cover people getting oral chemo so that they could keep going to work, they could keep trying to live their life, and it was less disruptive than the traditional intravenous option. But our bill will lower health costs for cancer patients in Michigan. It limits the maximum copays for oral chemo to $150 for a 30-day supply. People were spending thousands. And so I learned about it. I came to Lansing committed to, like, how do we get this done? And then, you know, Rep. Roth and I have a colleague, Samantha Steckloff from Farmington Hills, who herself is a cancer survivor who's still living with it, managing it in remission. And this is her bill. And she had tried, right, John, multiple sessions. She tried to get it through. And we got to vote together to finally get it done on the House floor. It has been signed into law. And it means a lot to me that we get to do those kinds of things to make a real difference for folks at some of the most vulnerable moments in their lives. They should not be worrying about doctor bills. They should just be able to focus on getting, you know, healing and getting better.
That's great. And it is great to hear about success, ways that things are moving forward. So the League, and I know there's some echo, sorry. The League recently did an education program that we called "What's the Latest Stink About the Regulation of Septic Systems?" But it was focusing on some bills that are, I guess, in committee or are being considered that would call for more inspections and more consistency across the state, since apparently we're the only or one of the very few states that don't have statewide septic system, even though we love our lakes, we love our water. Representative Roth, do you want to start? We just want to ask, you know, what you think about these bills and where you see them going.
They need work a little bit. From my perspective, I think there is a chance that something could come out of this. Part of the problem that we're seeing is some of the inspection dates and times. Our health departments just don't have enough workers to do the 5-year inspections. That's really serious, and it's going to cost a ton of money for our local health departments. And if they can even find the inspectors to do this work, I think we need to work on the timing and see, you know, is it every 10 years, at 15? What is the true time that health departments can actually do this work? Others have talked about doing a statewide inspection at sale. Another thought. I think a lot of work needs to be done yet. I don't think they're ready to go as is. But that's why you have committees, and that's why you should be working on things like this. We just can't bankrupt our local communities to do an inspection system that just doesn't work. And the worry that I have is we know we need more housing. Okay, we definitely need more housing. Is that in rural areas where it's going to be more septic? Then we have even a bigger number of inspections that need to be happen if we do the 5 or 10 or 15-year program. If it's in a city where it's already has sewer, that's a different story. So I'm just concerned about some of the things. I think it needs to be worked through more. I think there is a chance for something to happen. How it ends up, not quite sure yet. Is this is it a statewide sale ordinance? Maybe that. Just needs more work at this time. I can't say it's going to pass as is, because our local communities are really pushing back, saying this is very hard. But at the same time, we don't want to exactly be polluting all our rivers and streams and things like that. So it needs more community work, and hopefully we can come to something.
Okay, Representative Coffia.
Thank you. Yeah, Rep. Roth, I've heard the same concerns, the cost for additional FTEs for sanitarians to actually do the inspections right at the health department. I've had folks come to my coffee hours, as I'm sure they come to yours, and bring up those issues, folks who work for the health department. And I've done first quarter report and then end of year reports at all 3 of my county commissions. And the commissioners in Betsy and Leelanau have both brought it up, because Betsy, they consider they have kind of a gold standard. They've had a septic ordinance in place for a long time, and then Leelanau just adopted theirs. I think it was last year, after many, many years of work. And so they're kind of wanting to negotiate, well, or navigate. If we've got something that's already working for us, do we need a statewide? So I've encouraged them, said, look, we are the Great Lakes state, right? We are surrounded by water. We know it's important to be mindful of contamination, and it's a balance. The gentleman, the representative who is the lead sponsor on the package, Representative Phil Skaggs out of Grand Rapids, is a former local elected himself. And I've encouraged them, reach out to his office. As John said, this is a good time to be sort of workshopping, bring up some of your very valid questions and concerns. And is it point of sale? Is it every 5 years? Something that's important to me, excuse me, it's very dry today. The air is very dry. Anyway, something that's really important to me. I grew up in a very rural working class community in Kalkaska County, which Rep. Roth now represents. And I know that we have many families who might be lucky enough to own property, but they're sort of land rich, cash poor. And if we have an ordinance, a statewide ordinance that goes into place, that could create economic hardship for people who may not have the funds to pay for an inspection. So those are things that I think are important to really look at. Make sure that, yes, of course, we want to be protecting our groundwater, our lakes, rivers, and streams. And we also want to look out for folks who might be struggling financially, that we're not putting an undue burden on them. So I would agree with my colleague, there's work to be done. I doubt too that it will come through as is, but that's okay, because any good policymaker understands that it's a process, it's negotiation, it's listening. You may not have thought of something, Rep. Skaggs is in an urban area. We're from rural. We have some perspectives that we can bring to the table. So I think that's all very much a healthy part of the process. So yeah, and John, I don't think it's come up in committee yet. Even I checked on it before I reported to my boards in December. So I think it's still kind of in the introduction and workshopping phase before it would go to like local gov, I think. But in any case, that lots more than you want to know on septic from
Oh no, it's great. And it is absolutely fascinating to have sort of heard from an advocacy perspective, here's what we'd like to see, but also now to hear from both of you on the practical and implications and the ups and downs. So it's very interesting.
I mean, that's our job, right? That's our job. I ran on keeping our environment clean. I had the honor of representing, like, Bill Milliken is born and raised in Traverse City. That's such a legacy to try to live up to, because he was such an environmental champion. And I know he would want us to think about working class communities and the impact on them and local government. So I think that's part of our job, is to try to bring those perspectives to the table and hopefully make a good idea even better.
Good.
On a good day, we do that.
So one of the things, of course, that the league works on is having, open and fair elections and voter access and, good communication with the public. So in November, Governor Whitmer signed the election bill package, a lot of it implementing from Proposal 2 that passed in 22. But I would love to hear now sort of the backstory. So can you share with us, what it included and how the process worked of getting from that proposal to getting legislation and where you see it going? Who wants to start?
John, I'll let you go first on this one. I'm not sure you were a super huge fan of all of it, so go ahead.
Yeah, this is where we're going to kind of, I don't want to say part ways, but just differ on what our opinions are. Kind of a disappointment, I would say, in this committee in particular. We have, on the Republican side, 3 clerks that have administered elections, 2 at township level, 1 at a county level. And there were many of the bills that the clerks just asked for either an amendment to change it slightly, or listen to them about some concerns they had of what could happen. And they really felt like in that committee that they didn't get listened to. there are some simple tweaks. One of the bills, I'll tell you one of them, getting a car, paying for a ride to the polls. That seems simple enough. I don't know of anybody that's ever been prosecuted for paying for an Uber or taxi to get to the polls. Just don't know anybody. The worry isn't that. The worry is, can the parties start paying for those rides? And that is a concern. And it's always been illegal. Same with providing water and water and snacks at a polling place. Can I say vote no on proposal 1 with that water? It doesn't have to say, vote for John Roth, but maybe it says vote no on proposal 2 or 1 or whatever it is. That's never been allowed before. And that's another bill that happened. And there were some amendments that were made by the clerks that run these elections to change them slightly. And at every time they were shot down and said, no, we're going to run them as is. One particular, a bill to allow our military veterans or military members that are overseas and their families to vote electronically. Not necessarily a problem from our end, other than we wanted to hear more about security, a part of it. And it was rushed through. And then a month later, it was rescinded on its start date because the state's not ready to do that. I think from our end, on our side, we just felt too much was rushed through and not worked bipartisanly or committee-wise. All the amendments were shot down in the committee. And I have to listen to my clerks. They're the ones telling me what they're seeing. And that's a shame. I think it's important. I think there's a lot of these that went through that probably would be okay if we had a slight amendment change or some of the wording changed. Half of them, I think, would have been voted yes on. But because of how it was done, and Betsy and I are not on that committee, so I can't give firsthand knowledge. I just have to listen to my members that sit on that committee, how they felt like it wasn't worked bipartisanly and weren't listened to enough to support these bills. So, I'm all for free and fair elections. I've not been one of these people that has ever talked about fraud much or whatever. There's always some issues in elections that could be tidied up, but I'm not one of those that have run on that. So it wasn't easy to vote no, but if it's rushed through without good conversation, you're going to get a no vote. And there were a couple bills towards the end that, not to do with elections, but some other things that were rushed through quicker than I thought. I don't have enough information and I didn't have enough say. I can't vote yes on it, so I'm going to vote no. So that's the one area I think we probably differ a little bit. And it's a shame. I think a lot of the stuff could be taken bipartisanly, and it just didn't feel like it was done in this realm.
Thank you. And Representative Coffia?
Thank you, Alice. And I can absolutely empathize with Rep. Roth. Like, I spent 4 years in not only a minority, but a super minority on my county commission. I was one of 2 Dems that won after an all Republican board for many, many years. I think I was the first Democratic woman in over 30 years on my board. And, I think I always I would have liked some things to be done a little different by the party in charge. And I think some of that is just natural. And I would say we should always be looking for more collaboration wherever possible. And so that's always a good goal. And there were some really excellent bills that were worked very closely with clerks. The chair of the elections committee, Penelope Sertoglu out of Lansing, just won like Legislator of the Year for just doing a really incredible job on so many fronts. And I know she worked with the Secretary of State and the clerks associations for many, many months before those bills ever hit the floor through her committee process. And so some of the bills, and I will admit to being biased because one of them is mine and it is now signed into law. And my bill, we'll start with that one, and I'll talk about a few of the others that passed as well. My bill, a clerk actually asked me to take this bill up. And what it will do is allow 16 and 17-year-olds to pre-register to vote. It does not change that constitutionally they can only vote when they turn 18, But if you think about when you're a junior and a senior in high school, you got your driver's license, you're taking AP Gov, you're getting involved, you're understanding civic engagement, and you're in many cases taking a lot more interest in the world around you that you're about to inherit and step into as an adult. And so teachers and, clerks, they pointed out to me that in the other states, I want to say it was 19 other states, but don't quote me on that. Many other states that have implemented pre-registration of 16 and 17-year-olds, they then, when the youth are old enough to vote, they see a statistically higher percentage of them start to vote their first election. A couple percentage points higher in the states where they've implemented this process. It's getting them into the pipeline sooner, and when they're 18 and lots of life is happening, they're already ready to go, and they're more likely not only to vote in their first election, but to become lifelong voters and be a part of being responsible for the shape of your country, for civic engagement. So for me, I don't care how they vote. They could vote for me, they could vote for my opponent. That's not the point. It's that they have a responsibility to be a part of the political process, and this is a way to sort of start that path sooner, and they feel empowered by that. I got to speak to a group of students from West and Central, TC West and Central. They just happened to come down, and remember, John, we did sort of Capitol tour with them, but I got to tell them how my bill had just come through the elections committee and it was going to make it easier for them to be able to vote. And I got a nice note from Paige Paul at TC Central later saying her students talked about that bill all the way home on the bus ride. We're talking about the impact of that. So that felt really amazing. A few other bills that did pass and are going into law. One of them, HB 4129, it guarantees protection under the law for Michiganders from the actions of intimidating an election official and preventing an election official performing their official duties during an election. And it enforces a corresponding criminal penalty, which is SB or Senate Bill 505, a maximum penalty of 5 years for someone engaging in that activity, prohibiting election workers from doing their jobs. Now, that one's really important to me, and it's sad that it's needed, but anyone who's not living under a rock has seen the escalation in threats toward our clerks and our election workers in the last couple of election cycles. And that's just such a shame. And it's having real cost. Rep. Roth talked about our clerks. We have attrition of clerks leaving the profession at a concerning rate because their work environment has become hostile. And so this is a way for us to bring the force of law to offer more protections for them so that they can feel safer doing their jobs. There were so many of them, but I'm going to pick out a few more. Another one that we passed through that was signed into law, Senate Bill 385, makes it easier for Michiganders to participate in the process, election process, as an election inspector by allowing them to file their application online instead of on paper. So that's going to save the clerks a lot of paperwork, right? It's the 21st century. It's almost a quarter into the 21st century. We should have an online application process for an election inspector. And I will close with, in honor of my colleague and the bipartisan, I think tone we try to strike whenever we can, a bipartisan package of bills, House Bill 5141 and 5143 through 45, which requires political advertisements using AI, artificial intelligence, to include a statement that the advertisement was generated by AI, and it prohibits people from knowingly distributing deceptive media that's generated by AI. That's sort of the top line. But that one, we're in a new era of technology, and some really strange things can be done through AI. They could put Rep. Roth or me saying the most outlandish things that we never actually said, and people would believe that because it's that convincing, that AI. So this is building in some guardrails. And again, we worked with the clerks, we worked with the Secretary of State to develop this legislation to be responsive to this AI phenomena. So anyway, that was a lot, but there you go.
It's an exciting topic. Representative Roth, go ahead. Go ahead.
Betsy's absolutely right. I don't want our poll workers abused. Of course not. Our poll, the clerks and all the people that do the poll work. No, absolutely not. But one amendment we added, make sure that the poll watchers who have a legal duty to be there, can be there, are also protected. If that amendment would have made it, I've been 100%. So again, it's just one quick amendment that we wish we'd have seen. So that's the only one I'm going to argue about. And that's it.
No, this is a great discussion. So for viewers, if you look in the chat, we just posted how you can ask questions online. And so we'll start putting those into the discussion as those come in. I'm interested in the future. So I'd like to hear from each of you, like, what's your special bill that you'd like to see through? I mean, you're halfway through this session, right? You know, we had last year and this year, and you all are up for election again. So we'll start with Representative Coffia and then go back to Representative Roth, so he can get the last word on this one. But so Representative Coffia, what's a bill that's near and dear that you would love to see go through this year?
Sure, it's hard to pick just one, knowing what's important to the district, but I will briefly name, there is a mental health parity bill that is very close. And what it would do is require insurance companies to actually cover mental health, inpatient care, and just general care at the same level they cover physical health care. I've heard, and I bet my colleague has too many stories of people only getting a few days of inpatient care covered by insurance, really making it impossible for a loved one to get the full scope of care they need in a mental health crisis. I really want to see that bill pass. It's desperately needed, the more mental health supports. I want to see the missing middle, and John, you and I have been talking about this one, a bill that would expand funds to build out more housing for folks who are firefighters, nurses, police officers, first responders, right? Teachers, who really are being priced out of the market. And what does that mean for the long term of our region? And the missing middle bill not only would expand funding available, but it also decouples, it changes the law so that the missing middle funding can go to housing developments that aren't just in or right next to a downtown. Current state law requires it to be that restrictive. And when you think about Northern Michigan, we need a lot more flexibility. Our downtowns, frankly, are a lot smaller than a Grand Rapids or Detroit. So that's one. Lastly, and I'll give it over to John, I have a bill that I've been working on with our veterans. I was on the Veterans Administration board as a county commissioner. I was the only non-veteran in the room, but both my grandpas are combat vets. And this room full of veterans pointed out that we have a Veterans Trust Fund that under current state law is restricted to wartime veterans. And this trust fund is utilized if a veteran comes into the VA and is having a one-time emergency, their basement flooded, they're out of a job right now and their car broke down and they need a short-term, just fix the cash to help get them through a crisis. My veterans at the local level pointed this out and said, if we could just change a small portion of the current state law to allow it to apply to peacetime veterans too, we can meet a lot more of the need that we're seeing, because we have a lot of peacetime vets who are coming in with those kinds of emergencies. When I was on the county commission, there were bipartisan support for a resolution. We passed that asking the legislature to make that change. And I am in the thick of it, negotiating with a bill to try to make that change at state law to give more support to our veterans. So there you go. That was 3. I sneaked them in, but over to you, John.
Yeah, so there's a package of bills. Representative Coffia is full aware of what I'm working on with fertility fraud. I've been working 3 straight years on it, and we got it close to a 3rd reading twice, and a little few games going on, just taking them off 3rd reading. This is to protect women when they go into an IVF clinic. If anybody's seen the Netflix movie Our Father, shows where an Indiana doctor and thought he was God apparently, and inseminated multiple women somewhere near the 1,000 range. Michigan wasn't, we don't know if it's that high, but it's the Wild Wild West. There are no laws dealing with IVF. The donors can lie, the doctors can lie, and if they do, it's potentially a civil trial, but that's it. It is protecting women that want to have babies, and we need to get it done. And we got it close my first term. It was in the Senate. It got voted through on the Health Policy Committee that day, And then the Senate went home for the year. And this was last year in lame duck, and we did nothing. And started up again this year and went through Judiciary Committee. The House passed unanimously. We got it back on the House floor, and I'm working with the majority to make sure it does come up. It is one of these bill packages that, look, there could be 30 bills that we could agree on to work on during this next 4 months of uncertainty at 54-54. I didn't go to vote no. I understand that at 54-54, it's going to have to be pretty bipartisan to get through. But I think these bills can do it. And they've been 3 years of my life. And I did not go to Lansing thinking I was going to work on IVF or fertility fraud. But one of our constituents that lives in Traverse City, this happened to her, happened more to her mother, but certainly she is a product of fraud in the IVF program. So it's something we need to get done. I'm as Representative Coffia talked about, Senate Bill 293. That's one of those things that I need to make sure Northern Michigan is going to see the money. A lot of times we pass bills and it's more metropolitan areas that get all the money and we get maybe a little something. I need to make sure that that money's coming north. And so we're working with MISTA. I've been having conversation with them all Christmas break. We'll see if we can get that done here in the next year or in the new year. So, but the fertility bills have to pass. That's protecting women. That is not anything that we can sit back and not do. So that's my big push.
Okay, well, thank you both. So we have some questions coming in from the viewers now. And one of them is pretty broad, but why did you want to become a legislator? And how do you handle the challenges of the position, including publicity, either positive or negative? Representative Roth, go ahead.
Absolutely. So obviously before I became a legislator, I actually thought maybe being a county commissioner would be fun. I mean, that was my truly biggest goal at the time. But as I saw, our representation didn't do its job before me. And I thought I was a pretty decent guy and that I can see both sides of the arguments. I can work through these things reasonably. My wife said, okay. That was the number one thing, getting my wife to say it's okay to do it. And she was all for it. So don't look back for a second. I'm glad I did. I think we've been able to do some really good things in my 3 years. I continue to have high hopes that we can get some things done going forward. It's helping constituents again. You know, again, the passing a bill is awesome. I got 5-6 bills passed my first term. Could have had another 5 or 6 if the Senate wouldn't have gone home early. But that's fun, but it's helping constituents. I went to a meeting in Kalkaska, and a guy stood up at a meeting and said, Roth, I'll always vote for you because you helped my grandson. You got his UIA benefits that he was looking for, and he couldn't get it done. So when you hear those kind of things, it really gives you a really good feel. You got to have tough skin. You got to have tough skin. If everything bothers you, you can't be a state rep. I mean, there's some really nasty things that are said about you at times, and then there's good things. The key is to know that you're doing the right thing and doing it for the people back home. And I always felt like I have.
Representative Coffia.
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's first of all, John's right. Someone's always going to be mad at you. You have to have thick skin, and so you do. But why I got into politics at all? So I mentioned earlier, I grew up in Kalkaska County, very rural, working class home. And I've shared this story many times about, my mom cleans houses for a living. She's the hardest working woman you will ever meet. She's still doing that work in her 60s. And that was my first job when I was 11, was helping her vacuum and dust and try not to break her clients' nice things. I might have broken a few nice things over the years, but come from a very hardworking family, and yet, we didn't have dental insurance. We didn't have health insurance. And a lot of families in our region and across this country are just decent, hardworking people who are just trying to get a break and make life for their family a little better. It leaves an impression on you when you grow up, seeing your family go through health struggles and not have what they need. And so for me, fundamentally, I believe public service is about doing what you can to elevate and make people's lives better. I think every person, every child, every family should be able to go to the doctor when they're sick. And if you don't know about federally qualified health centers, please, now you know, and please tell everyone you know, because they can offer primary care on a sliding scale. So nobody in this region should go without health care. And I make a point to spread the word about that. I think we're supposed to be there to solve problems. There are big, difficult problems that we should be looking to be a partner with. John and I, it's not our job to tell local communities how to solve the housing crisis, but I believe it is our responsibility to be a partner. Change the law so brownfield funds are available. So that's another piece, another tool on the table, right? Funding for projects. We got $15 million in the budget for a freshwater research and innovation center for our colleges and the universities to partner and create some really excellent paying jobs that are tied to our bay and our environment. Got some money for housing, got some money for childcare, and making laws that the goal is that we should be trying to make our community's life better. I don't know what else is the point of public service if it is not that. Some sort of a New Deal Democrat. I believe in the era of FDR. I believe in what he was able to do to lift our entire country with good visionary policy out of a Great Depression. And, there's a reason why he was revered, like that administration, what they were able to do with the CCC and Social Security, all of these different things. So public service should be about making people's lives better. And that's why I'm in it.
Okay, so changing direction a little bit. So the League really likes to educate voters on important issues. So I'm going to ask each of you, what issue would you like the League of Women Voters of the Grand Traverse area, so Benzie, Grand Traverse, Antrim, Kalkaska, Crawford, what issue would you like us to do an education program on? So Representative Coffia and then Representative Roth.
Gotta find my unmute button there. Thank you. Oh my goodness. So I'm always thinking about, well, I'll just say my policy priority focus, I try to keep it really focused in on what I'm hearing in the district. And in two terms on the county commission, we did a couple of scientific surveys of Grand Traverse County, and I think a lot of it ripples over into the other counties. But educational programs, one of the major issues that we're running into in our region that I heard about in those surveys and I hear about from constituents is childcare. I think you may have already done some work on this though, but I'm just going to say the childcare crisis is wide and deep, and it has very real impacts, not only on families and kids, but on our business community. It's one of the biggest challenges our regional chamber is telling us, that employers are having a hard time retaining talent. And this is the League of Women Voters. We know statistically it disproportionately impacts women having to maybe leave the workforce because the access to childcare is just becoming more and more difficult. So I've been looking at the regulatory structure around childcare, some of the things that we can streamline while keeping kids safe. What are some other states doing in terms of innovation to make those small businesses more viable and help them pay their workers a good wage so that they can retain, staff? So I think my office has been doing a lot of work and research into the childcare issue broadly, and what are some policy ideas that maybe other states are getting right that we could learn from. So selfishly, I would love for you to dig in on childcare, and I would like to use some of the ideas you all come up with as we're trying to tackle a really challenging problem. But that's one that I think is very relevant on a lot of levels.
That sounds great. Representative Roth, what issue would you like the League to do more education on?
Civics, just plain civics. I've been very disappointed in, I studied government. I was really interested in it. I did it in high school and in college. But the number of folks that don't even know how to get a hold of us, that don't even think they should be able to get a hold of us or don't know how. Or even if I do, what big deal? What's going to happen if I call my representative? A lot of people don't have a clue that they can make a huge difference. The fertility fraud bills I talked about, that's not something I researched in the beginning or even knew anything about until a constituent actually called me because they found out how to do that. I've been to events along with Representative Coffia where people say, well, we can't make a difference. Well, you can. You just have to make that call or email. So many people don't know how government works, and it's a little bit disappointing. I'll have people that are staunchly against a bill contact me and say, stop it, stop that bill. Well, 54 doesn't beat 56 ever mathematically. So people just don't know. They just think that if they get a hold of their representative, that person can immediately pass something or stop something. It's not. The numbers 56, 20, and 1 never fail. That's, again, math. You have to have 56 members of the House to support whatever is going on, and you have to have 20 senators vote for it, and then you have to have the governor's signature. And that's how our policies and our legislature work. But the number of people I know are not uneducated people. They're very smart people, but they don't know how government works. And that's a big one that I would love to see the league work on to help educate folks on how do you get a hold of Representative Coffia and myself.
Okay. And I love those numbers, 56, 20, and 1. Like
all
that's
all that matters.
Yes, it clarifies the issues. So for our viewers, in addition to putting questions in the Q&A, you can also put them in the chat. Okay, let's see. Let's go back into the past a little. In terms of your work experience, so I know Representative Coffia, you had your early life, but let's go with, the 10 years before you became a legislator. And same for you, Representative Roth. What work experience do you find supporting you the most as a legislator? So I can't remember who went first last time. Representative Roth.
I'd be happy to. So my background really is recreation. I've been in recreation all my life since I was right out of high school and right out of college, running marinas. I was at Crystal Mountain working in the ski business. I'm at another marina, golf at the country club. I've been skiing at Donor Ski House. I've just done a lot of recreation in my time. And that's given me different perspectives. One for recreation, how people spend their recreational dollars. Running a business. I'm a small business guy. I have to hire and pay taxes on my staff also at the marina. Working with kids. When I was at Crystal Mountain, I hired 50 kids a year. Not just all kids, but I would say 80% of them were kids. Knowing how they think and how you deal with the younger generation is important to know. So I think just my background in the different businesses, the number of people I've run into over the years, from lower income to some of the most wealthy, just trying to get a good balance for all that, I think is very important. And I don't know that everybody would want to do my life the last 21 years before I was a legislator. I worked 3 jobs a year, and they all seem to work together. And it just gave me a great background of all kinds of different people that I met along the way. So I think knowing the people really has been a big benefit for me.
Great. Representative Coffia.
Sure. So I think several different pieces of my professional background have really come in extremely handy in this position. One would be my very first career. Pretty much right out of high school, I got hired as a newspaper reporter for a weekly newspaper in Northern Michigan. And within a year and a half, I was doing well enough at it. They promoted me and I was editor of a newspaper for several years. And so in that position, I learned so much about looking at different sides of an issue and really understanding what I call sort of, it's like the invisible structure of how government works. If it's working well, great. So I covered school board, I covered township meetings, I covered county commission, I covered village council. You know, I worked with Army Corps of Engineers and the DNR and all of those. And so you sort of, people don't think about those things, but they're sort of a big part of how our communities function. And now in my role, I'm directly making policy decisions that impact those various local units of government. And so having that early experience, and then just as a journalist, sitting and listening to people and trying to understand and do a good job of portraying different sides of sometimes a contentious and complicated issue has been something I've drawn from throughout the rest of my career. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through college. One of them was as a TCAPS teaching assistant and special education assistant. So I've been in our classrooms, I've worked with our kids, I've worked with kids with special needs, and obviously we're making education policy. I'm so excited we have public school teachers as chairs of our policy committees and our appropriations committees. That's huge, and wasn't always the case. So having that front row perspective on having worked in our schools, the not charging kids for breakfast and lunch, I keep hearing from teachers is a game changer, because there were so many families who weren't quite, quote, you know, they didn't have such a low income to qualify, but they were struggling. And so making sure that kids can learn and fewer behavioral issues because they got a full belly, that's huge. So let's see, yeah. And then I was a Head Start social worker. I put myself through college. I got my bachelor's in social work, and I worked directly with working class, mostly very hardworking families in our region in Betsy, Leelanau, and Grand Traverse County with 5 different child cares. So I worked directly with providers and families in the very communities that I now have the honor to share representation with Rep. Roth. And obviously with a childcare crisis, that is an important set of experiences that I'm drawing from. And then county commission, working in local government, while it's not the same, has really helped prepare me for, and frankly, working in the minority for 4 years and still figuring out how to get things done, as we do, right, has also been really helpful. So lots of good life experience that has come in very handy in this new role.
Okay, well, thank you. So we're nearing the end of our program. I've got one more question for each of you. And we're so grateful for your participation and your information sharing. And we'll start with Representative Coffia. And this is about how you stay in touch with your citizens in the district. And but most especially, I want to hear, when is your next time, like if your constituents wanted to meet with you or talk with you, what's the best way for them to reach you or to meet with you? So Representative Coffia. Oh, you're muted still.
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you so much. So best way, so the question was best way for constituents to engage, how I stay connected with my constituents. Yeah. So it was really important to me as a new lawmaker, and I'm from Grand Traverse County. I've worked in Betsy and Leelanau, but I don't live there. So it was really important to me to set up coffee hours in all 3 counties. And I've done them once a month my entire first year, plus attending community meetings, reporting to all the county commissions. So those coffee hours have been incredibly helpful in keeping me sort of connected and outside what I call the Lansing bubble, where there are a lot of lobbyists and a lot of journalists and a lot of politicians, but not as many, everyday constituents. So that's been really important for me, as well as the doors we knocked and the phone calls we made with the survey this summer. We've also had, I don't know if it's the most engaged, but we've had, by 9 months or so into the term, we had over 10,000 calls and emails to my office. And I try to read as many of those, if they're not form letters, as I can, and be a part of giving responses. And that kept me very busy, but you learn a lot, and you can kind of see is your finger on the pulse of what's important to the community by what they're telling you. And it helps shape policy very directly. As far as how folks can attend the next events that we're going to be at for public interaction, I know Rep. Roth and I are both on a panel, right, John, this Friday, 9 a.m.
That's
at
correct.
Traverse Connect about housing. MISTA, the Michigan Housing Development Authority, has invited us and Senator DeMoose and I think Kurt Vanderwall and a couple of others to be on a panel to talk about housing. That's this Friday. So I would reach out to Traverse Connect to find out more about that. We're also both at the policy conference that the chamber is hosting at the resort, Grand Traverse Resort, later that day. Is that 1 to 3 or noon to 3? Sorry, I don't have the time in front of me. But yeah, look at the Traverse Connect website for their policy conference. And then my coffee hours, we're currently changing it up because we got some feedback from some, especially working families, that the times that I was doing it weren't working for them and they wanted a virtual option. So we're still going to do a coffee hour in every county, rotating through the second Monday of every month, and it looks like at noon. But then we're also going to do a virtual coffee hour at 4 p.m. And that's something that will make it easier for those working families to also participate. But folks can go to my Betsy Coffia on the House website, and you'll see all of my dates and available public interactions. But please reach out to, I regularly have coffee with constituents. I regularly attend in-district events, and eager to stay connected. So. And now you're muted, Alice.
Representative Roth. Thank you, Representative Coffia. Representative Roth, go ahead.
Similar things, coffee hours. Now I have 6 counties, so I have coffee hours 4 times a month, probably at least. I've had them as much as 6, 3 on a Friday, 3 on a Monday. But I have at least 6 coffee hours to 8 coffee hours per month in the 6 different districts. The next one that I know of, we get them started here right after the policy conference, the 26th of January. I'm at the M88 coffee shop up in Antrim County in Bel Air. So that'd be the first one. Then we got a bunch scheduled after that. But you can go to my John Roth at house.mi.gov and get on the newsletter too. We actually send out a newsletter monthly, and that has all our dates of any events that I would be at. So I think I've hit, well, I know I've hit every single county in my district for coffee hours of any kind or just meetings of general. It's a busy schedule. There's no doubt about it. And if somebody wants to meet with me, they can. They can also email me or call me, and I can certainly get back to them also. And happy to do so.
Okay, that sounds great. And I said I would only ask one more, but we got one that came in. How do you keep your focus and your energy? And what can we as your constituents do to support you? So Representative Roth?
Sure, absolutely. I try and get all the negative out as I can. I will be one that will always stay positive and truly believe that there are opportunities to work and get things done for the state of Michigan. As a constituent, just a nice letter every now and then. If you support what's going on, just say, hey, thank you for working for us. You don't have to blow smoke up my skirt, and say I'm the greatest ever. No, just, a little bit of support doesn't hurt. Because we do get a lot of people that say, where are you coming from, guy? You're out there. I'd say more positive than negative, but, a little note now and then to say, thanks for working hard for the state of Michigan is wonderful. And we'd certainly take that.
Okay. Representative Coffia.
Thank you. So how I keep my focus is my team and I meet weekly. Many times a week we talk, but we have a formalized meeting once a week. And every single, policy that I'm working on out of my office, I overlay, what am I hearing from my district? Is this specifically addressing a need? Again, childcare, housing, broadband, mental health, like what are the things, protecting our clean air, land and water? What are the things that we are doing, and do they line up with what I'm hearing from constituents, what I'm seeing in the district, what I hear at coffee hours, et cetera? that's really helpful because it's true. There are so many different bills and issues. You could run yourself in circles forever. But I also remember and remind myself, I have a room full of 100, there are 110 of us in the House and 38 of us in the Senate, and each person is bringing an expertise. You know, my seatmate is a licensed psychologist. She's brilliant, Felicia Braybeck. She's working on mental health policy. I don't need to reinvent the wheel. I identify that there are a lot of people with a lot of talents and they are championing different issues, and I try to keep in touch with them and support what they're doing so that you don't try to be all things to all people all the time. As far as encouragement, I am so humbled by how encouraging this community has been. John's right. Getting a nice note means so much to us. I think more than you realize sometimes when you've had a rough day at work. I read them to my staff. I always tell them this is about all of us and the work we're doing to help folks. But the encouragement has really been really meaningful to me, to know that it's having real impact. Tell me if it's making a difference, let me know, because I want to celebrate that with folks. And if I get it wrong, we can have a conversation. Try to be nice to John or me, but we can handle it. And just the encouragement does mean a lot, and keeping us informed, letting us know what you're seeing on the ground. That really does help us kind of shape what we're working on and see if we're on the right track. So those are my thoughts.
That's great. Well, I want to thank you so much, both Representative Roth and Coffia, for taking your time out of your clearly busy schedules to be with us here today. And I want to thank our viewers who've been joining us on Channel 189 or TACM's streaming or our Facebook page. But so many thanks to you. It is so rewarding to hear how you have worked together in the House for Northern Michigan. And thank you to our audience, and thank you to Matt Kern of Traverse Area Community Media, who has been working behind the scenes to keep this broadcast going. Yes. To find out more about the League or to join, please visit our website at lwvgta.org. And please help us tell others that today's program will be available for viewing at their convenience on the Traverse Area Community website, on the Community TV page, and on the League of Women Voters Grand Traverse Area Facebook page. And it will also be on the schedule of the Spectrum Cable TV Channel 189. And all of this streaming and recording information is also available on our website, lwvgta.org. Our next program is Tuesday, February 20th, and the topic is diversity, equity, inclusion, and voting. And our guest speaker is Benjamin Marentat, the City Clerk of Traverse City, who will be discussing and demonstrating all of the ways that voting now is accessible to people who may have limitations that would have prevented them, whether it's visual, audio, anything. It's an approach to making our polling places available to all. So thank you again for being with us.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thanks to the League for all they do. Good to see you, John. I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Everybody enjoy the Martin Luther King Day today.
Thank you.